Today I want to talk to you guys about 5 reasons that nonprofit organizations fail. I have done a ton of work with nonprofits, and for some reason they're very trendy in the permaculture, organic ag, sustainability space. I think it's because a lot of people want to do good. They want to save the world. They have ambitious plans to stop climate change or stop pollution being dumped into the ocean or whatever various cause you have. People get really lofty goals on how they can change the world, and in my personal experience, they see organic farming as an instrument to do that. And I don't want to discourage people from doing good, but what I do kind of want to discourage you from is starting a nonprofit, because I would like to make a case that you can actually achieve all the things in a nonprofit and better, and make money and have more sustainability in your business by running it as a for-profit than a nonprofit. So first, I want to go through all the main reasons that I see nonprofits fail. Just as a disclaimer before I go into the rest of these, there are probably more reasons, but these are the 5 reasons that I see a lot in my experience with consulting for nonprofits. So number one reason is wastefulness. Money is not spent efficiently or effectively. Because nonprofits get their money from external sources, be it donations from foundations or fundraising or crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, all these types of things, opposed to just selling products, they have these huge injections of money that come in, and they just ask, okay, well, how do we spend it? In a business, it never goes that way. In a business, it's every dollar that's earned is analyzed, and the question is, do I really need to spend it on this thing? Do I really need that thing? So there's more of a conservative approach with a business than there is a nonprofit, and I have seen dozens and dozens of nonprofits fail because they just blow through all their money. So some of these nonprofits that I've worked for have sometimes $250,000 to $500,000 of startup capital, and they squander it over a few years. Whereas in a business, that would be really hard to happen, especially if they were doing farming like the way I'm doing it and they have understood some of these principles. You wouldn't be squandering that kind of money. But like the saying goes, easy come, easy go. And in nonprofits, this is the number one reason I see them fail. Easy come, easy go, money gets squandered. So that's number one. Number 2 is a lack of drive. And so this is a term that I love, skin in the game. The workers, the directors, the board of directors, they don't necessarily have skin in the game like they would if they had their own financial risk involved. This is another great thing about business, is that you are responsible. If it fails, you lose money, and that means that people hustle. With a nonprofit, people are just going to a job, and that's neither here nor there. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's the reality of it. People don't have skin in the game, and so there's a lack of drive, which often leads to wastefulness, because a person's just doing a job. They're not really approaching it as if those were their dollars to spend, and they're going, oh, there's this thing here, okay, let's buy it. It's like there's this lack of drive. It's also the same when there's a really tough problem to be fixed. People aren't just jumping in hands first to stop it. If it's your business and there's something that is a problem that needs to be fixed now, although it's going to cost you a lot of money, you're in there and you're working till midnight. Sometimes you're putting in 120-hour work weeks to fix it. In nonprofits, that doesn't happen. My mother worked in nonprofits for almost her entire life, at least my entire life, I should say. And I have seen this throughout my entire life, is a lack of drive and lack of skin in the game in nonprofits, and that often leads to their demise. So third one here is cash flow. because a nonprofit, and this is one I see particularly with the nonprofit urban farms or farming operations, is because their cash flow is coming from external sources, they don't have experience building social capital with the marketplace. So they're not proportioned to what the market actually demands. Whereas in a business, you're not going to scale a business unless you see the demand. You know, if you're consistently short on orders, you're going to say, hey, there's a reason to expand these products because there's clearly a demand for it. In nonprofits, they don't really have that. It's like, well, cash is coming in from here and here and here, and we're doing this thing because we think it's a good idea. And that lack of market connection is a big part of the reason that can lead to it can lead to wastefulness, it can lead to lack of drive. All these things can kind of interconnect, but it's that cash flow. If your cash isn't coming from customers, you are not engaged in the marketplace in a real way, in an organic way. Fourth one is kind of similar, but it's a little bit different. Market awareness. So, because you're not having your cash flow come from people giving you money for a product, you're not actually understanding where the market might go. And some nonprofits can become redundant overnight because of this. Because they're just doing this stuff because it's how they think the world ought to be, and it's an idea, and they want to spread that idea. But if you're just growing food and this is, I'll give you I'm not going to name names, but this is I've seen this in multiple nonprofit farms that I've worked with, is that somebody has an idea, and so there's a poor community somewhere in an inner city, and we want to grow food for that community because we think they have a right to healthy food. That's in many mission statements in nonprofit urban organic farms. Problem is, the way you want the world to be, in that you want people to eat healthy food and so on and so forth, is not necessarily how the world is. So you might say, I think people in these communities have a right to healthy food and they should have healthy food. Well, unfortunately, those people in that community might not give a toss about your organic food. And this is one, I hate to say it, it's not nice to say, but I'm about being honest here, about giving you valuable information that can help you than just trying to virtue signal about how I think the world ought to be. But this is what it is these people say, well, you guys should have this and this and this. Meanwhile, the community doesn't care. And so there's no community engagement. There's no building of social capital. Like if you haven't seen my video on the 8 forms of capital, there's none of that. So the whole institution becomes redundant very quickly because there's no engagement with the market to understand the changing forces that exist in the market. So that's really important to understand with this. And these two are somewhat intertwined. The fifth one, incredibly common, especially with nonprofits that have been around for a long time, is director burnout. So what often happens is, like the leadership falls apart in a sense. So you have a group of directors who have a great idea for a vision of something. They come together, it might be 5 people, and because they don't have skin in the game, they get tired of it eventually. And I've seen this over and over and over and over again, is they come in with all of these great ideas and they're really motivated for a while. But because they don't have skin in the game, because they don't get paid for all these excess hours they put in, they eventually stop putting in those excess hours. And that lack of morale actually spreads around the organization. So what they often do in those is they bring in new directors. So Director A and B burned out. They might have been the founding directors. They leave. These two new directors come in. They don't have nearly the context and experience that the other directors had, so people have to spend their time bringing them up to speed. That takes energy, especially when you're not really getting a good salary or seeing a percentage of the profits of the organization. That leads to burnout. People burn out, organizations fall apart. If the leadership falls apart, the whole organization falls apart, and I've seen this time and time again. So those are the 5 main reasons why nonprofits fail. So saying all of that, I think that it is more than possible and better for you, better for the planet, better for every individual involved to have a big mission. You can want to solve big problems in the world, but do it to make money. Because if you don't do it to make money, the reality is you got to pay rent, you've got bills to pay, you might have a family, you might have debt, you might have all these things. Like, we can all say we should have a world without money, but it's just not the world we live in yet. Maybe we can make that someday, but it's not where we are. So if you're running your business as a for-profit, you can achieve so many things that a nonprofit does, but you have to do it in a different way. You first have to look at the bottom line. You have to say, okay, how do we make this operation sustainable so that it can sustain itself? And once we have that, now we can look at, okay, what can we do to make our farm, let's say, net zero, or our operation? Let's be energy zero, so no waste. Okay, what do we have to do to that? Well, if we don't have a profit, we can't even exercise that thought. So if we start from the base principle of making a profit and then tackling problem A, once that's achieved, let's tackle problem B and work our way up from there. And there's tons of businesses doing this. This is often referred to as a social enterprise. And I think that term is becoming more popular because people are realizing that nonprofits are usually very unsustainable, and now we're looking at these social enterprise operations, which are essentially just for-profit businesses with a greater mission. Because if you can't keep it sustainable, it's only going to last so long. And so the most important part of sustainable is sustaining you, is making sure that you can sustain yourself so that you can be alive and healthy to tackle other problems in the world. It's like, you know, when you're on the airplane and they brief you on the safety procedures is don't secure your mask to somebody else's face until it's secured on your face. Because if you die, then you can't put a mask on somebody else's face. So you've got to be sustainable for yourself. So those are my thoughts on the matter. I don't want to discourage people from doing good. You should do good, but you really got to take care of yourself first. And I think this is why the nonprofit isn't necessarily the best way to go. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to see more stuff like this, hit the subscribe button right now. Like and share the videos with your friends. All right, we'll talk to you later.